A very good afternoon to you and welcome to the latest in our series of live webinars brought to you by the HOP platform. So HOP is a website that we hope all schools and young people in Hertfordshire become aware of. So HOP stands for the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. It is a website and a series of social media platforms where you can find out a whole host of careers information and inspiration specifically targeted for young people at schools in Hertfordshire or immediately around. So these webinars are designed to give you the opportunity to hear directly from an expert who is from a particular field, and today I'm delighted to welcome Michael Head with us today, who is going to talk to you about his career, well, principally as a film director, because I know that's what you've signed up for, but Michael will also be able to talk to you about the other roles that he has performed in the film and theatre industry as well. It's a really, really fascinating story to hear, and I'm sure you'll all be incredibly inspired by the things that you've heard. Before I bring Michael in just to introduce himself, let me just give you a little bit of housekeeping. So firstly, for those of you that are watching this live, so it's Thursday afternoon, firstly, well done for coming home from school or college and logging on to attend this webinar. We really hope that you're getting something out of it. We can't see or hear any of you, but hopefully you can see and hear us fine. You can, however, interact with us, or specifically you can interact with Michael. And the way that you do that is on your dashboard, you should see that there's a tab on there that says questions. If you click on the questions tab, it will open out and there's a text box in there. If you type into the text box, there'll be a question that will come through. It's only visible to me, so it won't be visible to anyone else. And then I will ask that question or pass on your comment to Michael so he can respond to it. So make the most of this opportunity. If you're watching this back live, so this session is being recorded, it will be on our HOP platform, probably it'll be on YouTube, probably by Monday morning, to be fair. So you can watch it back, you can then share it with your family or friends, and you'll also be able to have a look at all the previous webinars that we've run over the last 4 years, which cover a whole host of different topics within different careers. But firstly, I'm delighted to welcome Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you just want to introduce yourself first of all?
Yes, so firstly, thank you for inviting me down. I'm delighted and honoured to be a part of this, and what a fantastic thing I think it is that you guys are doing. So yeah, my name's Michael Head. I trained in musical theatre and did a few West End musicals when I was younger. But I now work as a film writer, a film producer, a film actor, and as a film director. But my background was theatre. I worked in theatre for 15 years, and I've moved into film since COVID. So I've been fortunate enough to make 5 feature films in 2 years.
Okay, fantastic. So look, so the first thing to come on to, I mean, let's just touch on your early career. When you were 15, as many of our people watching this at the moment, did you know that this was the industry you wanted to go into?
Yes and no. If you'd have asked me at 15 what you want to do, I'd have said I want to be a musical theatre star. I wanted to be in Les Miserables, Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, West End, that sort of thing. And primarily I trained actually as a singer. And I trained at the London School of Musical Theatre, which was a fantastic school, very prestigious school. But it wasn't right for me. And then as I got into the world of musical theatre, I realised that I actually don't like musicals. And part of the reason I got into this is I didn't like the painting by numbers, and for 6 months you're in Les Mis, and for 6 months you do exactly the same thing every night. There's no real artistic flair. There's, someone's played that role before. At that moment you have to step there, you have to do that, you have to see, So I just found it incredibly monotonous, and that isn't actually what I wanted to do. And then I got into acting. And I couldn't get into serious acting because my career was all West End musicals, and I trained in musical theatre. So I got into writing, not because I wanted to be a writer, but because it was the only way I'd get a job. I won a number of awards as a playwright, and obviously I put myself in them roles. I got a number of awards as an actor, and then that was how it started. And then you learn the business side of things, which is what I think we'll cover today. It's not about being a film director. It's about understanding the industry. It's about being able to create a network and create a product. Because the truth is, no one is going to go, you can be a film. Here's $500,000. Go direct this film. It just doesn't work like So it's all about the education that you take on board. It's all about the network and the experiences and the opportunities that you create for yourself.
Sure. Okay. Well, look, we're going to delve into all of that and the different pathways into it. But just to start with, let's just focus on your role as a film director. So I know that your debut film, Bermondsey Tales, as a director earlier this year. So let's talk about, what does a film director do? So, did you create the? I mean, in this case, I think you did actually create it as well, didn't you? But typically, what does a film director do? When do they get involved in a project, and how does it work?
Yeah. So I've done 2 films in the last 3 months, and they show you the 2 different roles. So with Bermondsey Tales, I wrote it, I created it. It was my company that made the film, and I directed it. While on set for that, I got hired to do a film called The Spin, which I've just finished filming in Ireland. With that, I didn't write it. I wasn't my company. I was literally, for want of a better word, hired help. So you'll see that, and the guys watching, the guys and girls watching this will see that it's 2 main areas. You know, you get your people like Tarantino, that he will write the film, he'll create the film, and he'll execute the film as a director. Then you get other films like, say, The King's Speech, that was written years before, and then they bring the right director on to execute the producers and writers' vision. So they're the 2 ways that a director will become involved. It can be from the ground up and it's their idea, as was with Bermondsey Tales, or it can be, I was brought on to execute that writer and that producer's idea, as with The Spin.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, let's talk about in The Spin, because that sounds like it's perhaps the slightly more typical role or process for a director.
It really depends. I mean, if you look at nowadays, you know, so look at people like Guy Ritchie, Tarantino, Scorsese, you know, some real big names there. Richard Burton, sorry, not Richard Burton, he's Tim Burton. They actually create their own films. So I would say it's 50-50.
Right. Okay.
Half the time it will be the writer director, and half the time it will just be the director. But I'm happy to talk through both processes, the differences between the different pitfalls and the different benefits of both.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the question: which do you prefer? If you had the choice, what would you do?
Well, primarily I prefer writing. So I think that is what I always love doing. I see myself, and my career path is certainly more Tarantino and Guy Ritchie than it is, you know, an outside director. And that's because I have a particular style as a director. I have and my writing influences that. But that said, I've just loved doing the Spin, which was a different area altogether. You know, the script was already there, and I just had to bring that script to life. But in some ways, you're more restricted because you've got, it's already there, and it's not necessarily your vision. So sometimes you go, actually, I'd have wrote that differently. Actually, that character's going to do that, where I would personally maybe make them do that. So it's me personally, I prefer the writing director side of it. But then I know directors that would be horrified by that, and you know, writing isn't their skill set, and what they love is they love coming on board and bringing that vision to life.
Yeah. So in the case of The Spin, how much license do you have as the director to change things, or to sort of veer off the script that the writer's given you?
Yeah, again, there's no set rule. Sometimes the script writer and the producer, it's mainly the producer, because it's their money. Ultimately, it's their money you're spending, and they're the people paying the wages. So if the producer says to you, look, there's the script, do what you want to do, then you've got a lot of freedom, a lot of creative freedom. I've also worked, especially in theatre, I directed a play where the writer was in the background, you know, in the rehearsal space, and it was word for word. You've just got to, you know. So there's no set rule, but I think generally, to give it a rough percent, I say you've got sort of like 10-15% creative license, shall we say, where you can veer from the script, maybe suggest an idea, and then what you would often do is you go back to the writer and go, look, I've read this through, and you know, at this point he walks through that door and he leaves her, where actually if he walks through there and he stays and he tries to make it work, that might take a different arc, and then they can take that idea on board, or they can, you know, say, actually, no, that's my vision. Do as you're told, for want of a better way of putting it.
Sure. And then, well, I suppose likewise, when you are directing a film that you've written as well, do you find that you will see things as they're going on, think, oh, I should have written that like that, and I suppose you've then got the license because it's your play that you can change?
So again, you'll get a different answer from different directors. For me, and I've always worked like this in theatre as well, for 17 years I've worked with actors. If I hire you to do that part, what I do is I see this is the way this part's going to be played. I've written it, I've cast you because I think you're the guy to do it. But I then allow the freedom to the actor to say, actually, do you know what? I say it like this, but I would actually say it like that. Yeah, you know, I always say it's got to feel comfortable in their mouth. So part of the director's job is working with the actor and how much freedom they allow that actor. Now, there's some actors, I work with John Hannah, who I worked with him a number of times now. He's brilliant. He was in Four Weddings and a Funeral and The Mummy. Now, John, I will give a lot of creative freedom to because he's immensely experienced. He makes great character choices. So 80% of what he does, I expect. 20% of what he does, I didn't expect, but it's brilliant. So you go with it. Then there's other actors where you give them an inch, they take a mile, so you've got to rein them in. But me personally, and I would, any director out there, I would recommend trust the actor. You know, you've hired them for a reason. And if you don't give them the creative freedom, it's not a good working relationship. A bit like football management. You know, you can get Ronaldo to play on the wing, but you've got to allow him to decide whether he's going to beat the man or put a cross in. You know, you've got to give a bit of creative freedom on the playing field, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay. Look, you will undoubtedly challenge the very premise of this question when I say, what does a typical day look like as a film director? So
there's 3 processes to being a film director, and there's 3 processes to making a film. There's the film you write, the film you film, and then the film you edit. And all 3 are different. And if you end up making the film that you write, you've failed. So the 3 processes are pre-production. So as a film director, pre-production is 8 or 9 people in an office. You've got your first AD, your line producer, maybe an exec producer, your second AD, and your design team. So that would be, or your creative teams, I call them. So that would be your DOP, director of photography, and your art and design team, costume, and so on. And it works in 2 areas. You have half of it is the logistics, right? My films are 4 weeks. So in 4 weeks, we've got to film this. So we schedule it. Where are the locations? What's the logistics of moving from that location to that location? Who's calling them actors in? How many actors do we need? How many extras do we need? So it's the logistical side of making a film. And that's your first AD and your second AD and your line producer's job. The second part of the pre-prep is the creative side, which is what I love. So it's talking to your DOP and saying, right, this is my vision for this shot. In this bit, I want it filmed like that. That's a reference for it. So look at this film. I want it filmed like that. I want it this way. That's the style I want. And then they'll bounce ideas off you. Then you talk to the design team. You say, look, in this scene, I want it to feel a little bit like this because of this reason. They'll come back to you with a colour palette. And they say, okay, like for example, in Bermondsey, there's a scene that we wanted it to feel odd. Something's happening, but it ain't quite right. So the colour palette was done a particular way. The clock is slightly oversized. It's bigger than it should be, just to make you feel you don't quite realise what it is. So these are the discussions we have. And then there's a fight scene. There's 2 fight scenes. And I said, right, Kingsman is the reference for this fight scene. To which the DOP went, go away. We ain't got the money. We haven't got the time. So he come back to me with, we can film it like this. So they're the 2 areas of what I call pre-production. As a rule, in an indie film, that lasts about 3 weeks. Now, there's no set timeline. If you're making a Marvel film, that will last 3-4 months. That's stage 1. Then you've got your filming. A typical film day, you will get in early. So filming starts at 8. you get in at 7, discuss with your first, who is basically the first AD isn't your assistant. That's in theatre.
Mhm.
The first AD in film is in charge of the scheduling. So his job is to tell me I'm taking too long, or you know, he's the clock. So sometimes I'll say, actually, I want to do this shot, and you go, you can do that shot, but if you do that later on, you can't film this. You know, that sort of. So we'll discuss with him, right? Okay, we're today we're going to do this, this, and this. We talk about the shots and we create it. We create the plan for the day. Then the actors come in. You prep the actors, what you're looking to do, ask a few questions. Then I tend to rehearse the scene first, like a stage play. So for the first hour, we won't even film. We'll just rehearse it. Then the next step is the filming of it. I always say shoot stuff out. So if you're filming in a room like this and we've got 2 actors that way, the lights are all here and everything's set that way. Shoot everything out, then reposition the lights, and then all of a sudden you're shooting from there and it's that way, you know. So you're repositioning. That's how I like to do it. Some actors do it edit for edit, and I just don't think that's an effective way of using your day. So get in, prep it, talk it through with the actors. Then it becomes the filming, and it's about the shot list, which if you guys look up, Studio Binder is fantastic on YouTube. Look up the shot list. That's actually how I learned to be a director. So the shot list is what you're doing next. You're executing and making sure you've got coverage. So if it's me and you now, there'll be a single on you, a single on me, a 2 shot of both of us. Then there might be a reverse over the shoulder. There might be a panning shot of all that. And it's discussing the types of shots and the framing. So the framing is like, is it a single? Is it a broad? Is it a wide? Is it a 2 shot? Is it dirty, which means there's someone in it? It's shot over my shoulder. You see my shoulder, it's your face. Is it a panning shot, which means it's on a track and the camera will move? So that's the next stage, is filming that. Realistically, a filming day lasts for 12 hours. And then at the end of the day, the actors go home. You spend your time with your first and your DOP, and you will discuss how the day went. Did we get everything we needed? Do we need to call them back? What we're going to do tomorrow? So that's a typical day. That lasts for 4 weeks as a rule.
Yeah, sure.
Again, a Marvel film, the shoot will last 6 months.
Yeah.
The final part of a director's job is the edit. So again, this is different for every actor, for every director. Some directors like to edit the film themselves. For me, it's a terrible idea. Hire an editor. I like to give it to them. I like to let them pick the shots, let them pick what's happening, give them, again, the creative freedom. And then I will give them notes. The reason I do that is it's cost effective, it's quicker, and they might see something you don't see. And if you don't quite agree with what they're doing, then you can put your foot down. But as a rule, you give them the freedom. It's a bit like with music. You might write the song, but then you get Timbaland to produce it. So that's the editing process. The editing process can last anything up to 3 months. For Bermondsey, it was 7 weeks. And that's when you put the music on, work with the composer. Maybe it's a composer that's doing an original score. Maybe you're picking the songs in. Again, Tarantino wanted Stuck in the Middle of You. So he spent all his budget on that one song. It's, you know, an original song. It was an original song, sorry. So they're the 3 processes: the prep, the filming, and then the edit.
Thank you. Well, that's a really detailed sort of story of that sort of start to finish journey. So from your perspective, what are your favourite bits of that process? And then equally, what do you find the most challenging?
I love each part of it for a different reason. So I love the creating part of it because that's what I love doing. I love making something happen. My favourite part is the filming, because that's when it comes to life. You know, you've written a story, but it's on paper. And then you've got these wonderful actors bringing it to life. You've got a DOP who will maybe go, for example, we had this scene and it had to be shot a certain way so you don't realise that someone's watching. And he shot it through the mirror. Now, I never see that. We went in and went, I'm going to use that mirror. So it's bringing it to life. seeing these actors, and you write a line a certain way, and when they deliver it how you expect it, it's beautiful. When they do it a different way, you're like, oh, that's even better. I didn't see that. So the creative process of the filming is my personal favourite. I think most directors would say that. But then the editing process is brilliant, because then you're seeing everything come to life, and it's still be, you know, an editor might put a different bit of music on, or cut it a different way, and all of a sudden you're still seeing something that you've written down that they brought to life. So every part of it has its own rewards and its own different, a bit like with a child, you know, when you've got a kid, you love a baby for a reason, you love a toddler for a reason, you love a 10-year-old for a reason, and a teen. They all bring their different qualities. The biggest challenge is time, especially on indie films. You know, if you're making a film for anything under $1 million, which isn't, I know it sounds, £1 million is not a lot of money to make a film. So you are constantly up against it, and every day will bring a different problem. It might be on the spin, we had a multitude of problems. The first day the lights were broken, and it was what they call pulsing. So although the light was just flashing, on camera it looked like it was doing that, like lines running across. I lost 45 minutes for that, and the actress Moira Higgins, we only had her for 1 day. So that was the pressure. That next day or later on, the radios didn't work. So we're communicating to actors. They're about a mile away down the beach, and rather than radioing them, we're doing hand signals to cut, and so every day's got a different problem. Or a different challenge, shall we say? Might be an actor. You might have an actor that isn't quite hitting it, isn't quite doing what they want, or maybe being difficult. You know, in every walk of life, you get difficult people. That's just what might be you that's being difficult that day. You know, you never know. So the hardest part is you never get the same challenge twice, and it's how you work on that challenge. And the answer to that is it's experience, and it's trusting your team. Team is so important. And then obviously the ultimate problem is money and time. We've never got enough money. I'd always like more money to spend, and we've never got enough time. I'd always like another week. So they're the two biggest challenges, and it's the pressure. You know, you're still spending £500,000. You've still got to deliver. And if you can't handle that pressure, and that's why there's often on both sets that I've worked, I've had tears from people. And it's about coping with that. You sort, I sort of said to her, look, there's people dying of cancer. I went, that's real pressure. This is just a film. Relax, it isn't that important. So a big part of your job as a director is managing people. And you've got to learn how to manage it. You know, managing an actor with a big ego is a bit fragile, is one thing. Managing a crew member that's under pressure and stressed, and someone in her team's let her down for a supply of shoes, just say. So the shoes aren't right, and they're feeling the pressure of that. So it really is managing both sides of it. Again, a bit like a football manager. You're managing the players' egos. You're also managing the fans' expectations. You're also managing the chairman's expectations. So it is. That's the biggest challenge.
And that's absolutely why people don't come straight out of school or university and become a film director straight away, because there's lots of life experience that comes with dealing with the sorts of challenges that you're just talking about there. We've had some questions come in already. I will try and get through to all of them. I'll just try and get them in the right places. If I'm not asking your question that you submitted straight away, don't worry, we will definitely come onto it. But what I did just want to ask, if there's a good time to ask, is how did you get into writing to begin with? Because I know this is your passion. So the person who sent this one in said it's something I'd love to do, but seems very daunting to start. So talk to us about that process into writing.
So at school I was written off, I'm dyslexic. So back in the day, dyslexia weren't really a thing, so they just thought I was thick. So I left school with A levels, not particularly great grades. And the reason I started writing was because no one would hire me as an actor. And I remember my agent said to me, I went, I want a job, but I can't get you a job without experience. But without experience, I can't get a job. It was chicken and egg, catch-22. And he went, oh, darling, go write something. And he was joking. And I went away that weekend. It was a Friday. Well, look, give me the weekend. on Monday I'll have a play for you. And over the weekend I wrote a play. So I got into writing through necessity. I didn't train as a writer. I didn't read books on how to write, all this free play structure and all that. Personally, I hate all that. I literally wrote out of necessity. And I think the trick to writing is write what you know and write about who you know. So all of my scripts tend to be a working class theme. All of the scripts, the characters, if you know me and you know the people in my life, you'll go, that's based on them. That's, you know, that's where that's drawn. Draw on real life experiences. Even if you want to write a fantasy, you know, and you're writing Harry Potter or Star Wars, I guarantee Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker are based on someone that writer knows, you know. So I got into it out of pure fluke, and I don't think there's a way of teaching it as such. You can go to classes, of course you can, but don't listen to structures. All my life I've been told that I can't write what I write, and every time the project's worked, you know, I was told I can't write a film, and I've had, well, my first film won multiple awards and was the biggest selling film on Amazon 2022 in the UK. So don't be, you know, one of my plays, Time, was a one act, one scene. There was no scene changes, there was no light changes. It's just a stream of consciousness. And a few people went, that won't work, and it won multiple awards. So, you know, trust yourself as a writer. And also work with the right actors, work with the right team. I can't spell, as you'll know from the emails we've exchanged, and I can't do punctuation. But don't let that hold you back. You know, the actors. I was working with David Shaw, that was in The Inbetweeners, Jay's dad. I was out there last night. He said when I read that play, he went, I thought it was a very interesting thing to have an hour and a half play without a single comma in it. I just don't get it. You know, so don't. Back yourself. Don't listen to the negativity. Surround yourself by good people, and you. If I can do it, and you know, I'm a multi-award winning writer. If I can do that, anyone can. And then that, in my opinion, leads to the directing. That creative flair is what leads to it.
Yeah, okay. Well, as a follow-up question there, it says, how creative is the role of film director? I guess you kind of touched on this, that it probably depends on who you're working with, but it's sort of a general answer.
It depends, and it also depends on the director. So I've worked with a multitude of bad directors. I've worked with BAFTA-winning directors. Some have, it's about what you have as creative flair and a creative vision. So you watch a lot of films, and start watching this. You know, for the people that are watching this, watch a film. Why have they chose that shot list? Why have they chose that coverage? Why have they chose to shoot in that way? Like, you watch Tarantino, who I love. The start of Pulp Fiction is the back of the guy's head, and he's doing the monologue, but all you can see is that. Now, that's the wrong choice. You shouldn't do that, but it works, and that's his creative flair. He saw it that way, so it is actually very creative, and that's what I love about it. Even with The Spin, that wasn't my script. I love a oneer. It's a big thing of mine, a one shot, which is, there's no cuts. So every film I do will have a big oneer in it, and it's like a big choreographed, you know, he comes out the window and he comes out and the farmer chases him, and then the gun comes out, and as he shoots, it pans to the guy running, he drops his hat, comes back to the daughter, comes out to meet the dad who's shooting. So that was a creative choice that I had. Now, some directors don't do that. I worked in one film where the director didn't really give any notes at all. He got the coverage, and he made the film very functional, but he didn't give an actor a note. He didn't do a shot that was out of the real ordinary of what you would expect. And if you watch some films, you'll see that and you go, oh, that's just basic coverage. And there's nothing against that, but it's because that director isn't very creative. Where you work with other directors that will break the rules, will bend the rules, they will have a certain style. If you watch like a Christopher Nolan film, or a Lucas film, or a Tarantino or a Ritchie film, you can tell it's their film by their creativity. So it's a very creative job if you're very creative, but that doesn't mean it has to, you know, Some people are just, they just play by the rules, and they just, for want of a better one, they just knock the film out.
Yeah, yeah, I said. So another question that's come in is, what inspires your creativity? Is it certain films or books? I mean, you've said a lot of your stories are based on your own experiences or people that you know, but do you also, are there other areas that you dip into for that creativity?
Yeah, so I obviously, a lot of my Bermondsey Tales was based on my granddad, who was an armed bank robber back in the day. He's all right, he's passed away now, so we can talk about it. So it comes from that world. Worth a Flutter, again, is a comedy, very different, but it's based on truth. The Greater Game is about footballers in World War One. So my writing comes from a point of truth. Now, my film, I call it a film palette. My film palette is so heavily geared towards the films that I like. So Guy Ritchie, Tarantino, films like In Bruges. I love In Bruges. And I will, Kingsman, again, fantastically shot, The Bourne Identity. So if I see a film that I like, I will, that's my film palette. Now, my film palette is very specific, Scorsese as well. Now, it's important to have the right team. My DOP, Sebastian Kurz, is a genius. Now, his film palette is incredibly broad, and he watches all films that I would never dream. One of them was Victoria, and the whole film is a one, a bit like 1917. So he's educating me, and so it's about expanding that palette. But for me, it's watch the films that you like, look at the shots that you like, and then bring your own flair to it. If you think you've got an original idea, you haven't. There hasn't been an original idea for 40,000 years. You know, when every film is ripped off from somewhere. Every shot has been shot before. So if you think you're creating it, you're deluded, is the truth. But what you can do is be influenced by something else before and then put your own spin on it. And that's what I like to do. And that, even like Tarantino, he nicked his films from a lot of Japanese cinema. So that's what I would say is have your influences, have your palette, and work towards that, but bring your flair to that. You know, it's a bit like a song. Every song sounds a bit like a song that's been sung before, but you make it your own. You know, that would be my, I guess that's a bit of a loose answer, but that would be what I would say. That's where I'm influenced from. And your DOP is your God. Yeah. He is the one that will bring your flair to life. So make sure you've got a good DOP. I say that the least important person on the film set is the film director. The actors are the ones bringing it to life. The DOP is the one shooting it and making it look good. And your first is the one that's making sure that it's all run to time. You know, so you've got to have a strong team. Otherwise, a bad film director can make a decent film if the team's good. An exceptional film director can't make a decent film if the team's bad.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Right. Going to touch on, I think this is probably going to cover a lot of the questions that have come in. So these are all the sort of pathways into this industry. So, I mean, as you quite rightly pointed out at the time, no one comes out of school or university and then gets a gig as a film director with a multi-million-pound budget straight away. So it's interesting just to explore them there. So I guess, Michael, you spoke about your own background, but I think if you were to put yourself back into your 15-year-old body, where it's all about to start again, you know this is where you want to end up. I mean, what would you have done? Are there particular subjects at school you would have done? Let's cover that before we think about what happens sort of post-school.
Yeah, so I think something there's no set route. I mean, my route as a director couldn't be more incorrect, so to speak. But I've been very lucky. What I would suggest is, obviously, there's two sides to this. There's the industry side and the artistic side. Drama is important. Even if you don't want to be an actor, you have to understand how actors think. I've got a brilliant script supervisor, but she's great at her job, but she can't work with actors. So you have to know how they think, how to give a note to a certain actor. I will give an actor one note in a certain way, and then another actor I'll give a different note. So drama is important. Even if you don't want to be an actor, do drama. Learn how actors think. Put yourself around actors. put yourself in a position where you are performing to then realise what they're going through. So that's important, I would say. The other side of it is obviously film schools, film classes, which is what I never knew. Learn how to use a camera. Even if you don't want to be a cameraman or a DOP, you need to appreciate what the shot list is. You need to appreciate what coverage is. You need to appreciate how long it takes. Learn about lighting, you know, the gaffer side of it. You know, how long is it going to take to light that? How do we light that? So film, anything to do with film studies, it gives you a wide palette of films. Anything to do with film, the making of films will educate you in doing that. That's the education side of it. The other side of it is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So if you are in the right classes, you're going to be surrounded by the right creative people that are going to help you make your career. So for instance, my designer that does all the design for my films went to film school with my DOP. So they understand each other, they're best friends, and he got, my DOP got my designer his job, because when I went up looking for someone, I've got a mate. So that's important, it's your network. And if you are going to a university, like Hertfordshire is fantastic, and I know the dean, he comes from a film school, so he gets it. And the courses and the facilities are fantastic. So if you go to that university, not only are you getting the education, you're also getting the network. Because no, I ain't going to hire someone. Oh, he's half a mil, make a film. But you lot in that class might all go and make that film. And you'll make a little film, a small film, a short film, and it will get better and better and better, and you will get more and more experience. So that's what I would say. It's about, you have to understand the actor. You have to understand how to work with the actor. But it's you know, film studies, filmmaking, anything to do with making films. And you will learn all them different sides, because you have to work your way up. Every film director, as a rule, probably worked as a runner at some point.
Sure. Okay. And then equally, I'm thinking outside of, or even in school, get involved in school productions, local amateur productions.
Yeah, learn. Yeah. Whether, you know, even if it's you and your mates on an iPhone making a film for YouTube, yeah, go do it. Go make them experiences, because you will learn. You will learn from experiences far more than you'll ever learn from a book. That's just the truth. It's practical. You know, like with sports, you can read as many books as you want. You'll learn by being on the field. So yeah, I would say make films, learn about films. There's people like us, like both of the films that I've directed have had a large contingency of students. And they said, you know, they learned more in 4 weeks on set than they learned in 3 years at Middlesex University. Now, it's not because the course wasn't brilliant. The course was fantastic, and that's where they learned the skills that made them survive on set. But in them 4 weeks, it's the real life experience. So yeah, outside of school, get involved with productions, get involved with making films, find out who's making films, why they're making films. And also, you never know. One person I trained with is now one of the biggest theatre producers in the country. You never know what opportunities are going to come by who you know and what networks. You know, you might get someone that's a good DOP, and then 1 minute the directors for that go, actually, yeah, I've got you the job. It really does work like that.
Yeah. I mean, you've worked with lots of directors, you know, some good, some bad ones. What are the sorts of personality traits or skill sets that you think all good directors have, though?
Charisma, because it's hard. It is hard. It's long. Every day is a 12-hour. When I was doing Bermondsey, I was working 17-hour days. So you have to be able to inspire. Again, I always go to football. Football manager, you know, the ones that can put their arm around you and make you play better than what you are. That's a director. My job is to make you the best actor you can be. My job is, when the gaffer's flagging a little bit, to inspire him to, you know, get the next setup done, to get it almost like a politician. You have to rally everyone behind you. So charisma is important. And not crumbling under pressure. I worked with one director that crumbled, couldn't handle the pressure, and everything then. He started making bad calls. Decisions took longer than what they should, and then the problems built and built and built and built and built until in the end they had to be removed from the job, and and someone else come in and covered for them. So they're the two things: ability to handle pressure and ability to motivate people and to make everyone feel as a team. I also worked on one film where there was huge division between the actors and the crew, division between that lot and that lot, and it was terrible, you know. So that's it's if you can work with people, it will almost make up for not being maybe technically as good as you could be.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I mean, obviously, director role is the one that people will aspire to, in the same way that, you know, people want to go into the football industry and become a football manager. But presumably, if you haven't quite got those skill sets, there's plenty of different jobs and roles within the industry that are there for somebody, aren't there?
Yeah. And this is what we do. I mean, if people, you know, that are once they're at the point of training, this is why we work the way we work. We bring students on board. We give them roles. So on a film set, you will have a runner. Obviously, they're seen as the lowest job, but you know their job is to run, to liaise with the actors, to make sure that everyone's got the water, to make sure that if the cars, you know, if they need a car, the car's there. Your third AD will work with the director to give the background artists their notes. So, you know, you walk there, you do this, you do that. Could you laugh a little bit? Could you not be as loud? Oh, can you act like you're more interested? You know, they will work with the background artist. So their job is one day to be the director, but that's the closest one. You know, before you get to deal with the main actors, you deal with the background actors.
Yeah.
Then you've got your second AD that's not even on set. Their job is to book in everyone, make sure the actors are there, make sure the extras are there, make sure that if we need a grip, the grip turns up, you know, all sorts of things like that. The first AD is the director's right-hand man. Their job is all scheduling. They will make sure that we're on time. They will make sure the schedule's right. They will also work with the director. I mean, my first is one of my best mates. He's phenomenal. He's far more experienced than me. But he'll say, do you think we should maybe do that? How about if we do, you know, you've done that. How about if we do this? We need a bit more coverage on the wide. So they're the directing roles. Then you've got gaffer. The gaffer is in charge of the lighting. The sparks, obviously, you know, so the gaffer will say, oh, we'll have a bit more red. We'll put a flag up there. We'll shoot this way. And they're their team. Then obviously you've got the sound department, which is pretty straightforward. The camera, the DOP, which is in charge of the shots. The camera assistants that will maybe work a second unit camera and focus pulling, making sure the actors are in focus. Then you've got obviously line producer and producers that are more the money side of things. So that's a sort of whistle-stop tour of the different roles that you may get on a film set.
Sure. And someone's just asked to clarify, AD is the assistant director?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so a DOP was the other one that you've...
So director of photography. So there's two things. You get a cameraman that is told, you point the camera there and you shoot that. Then you get the director of photography that will pick the shot. So he might say, actually, we'll shoot through the mirror, or do you know what? We won't shoot here, we'll have a pan, you know. So that's the difference. A cameraman or a camera assistant will operate that camera. The director of photography will decide what we are shooting.
Sure. Okay, no, that makes sense. Right, I've had a number of questions that have come in. I'm going to try and get through as many of those as we can. Before I do, I just want to round off by just explaining the relevance for this industry within Hertfordshire. So, you know, Michael, you've explained that you grew up in South London, down in Bermondsey, but I know that you're doing a lot of work, or a lot of your locations are up in Hertfordshire at the moment. And I guess the one thing that we're very proud of in the county is that by the end of this decade, there's going to be more stages in Hertfordshire than there will in the whole of Hollywood. So, do you see, as a film director, are you sort of constantly looking towards Hertfordshire and thinking, this is where I need the talent coming through from?
You are so lucky to be born in a time and a location where you are. It is, like you said, the sound, the stages is going to be more than Hollywood. The facilities, the amount, the quality of the facilities, and also the universities. I mean, obviously, Middlesex is, I've worked very, very closely with Middlesex, great university, great education. I work with a lot of their students. And Hertfordshire, I know the dean very well. He's fantastic. He, like I said, comes from a film school. He understands film. The courses there, the way they operate the course, it isn't just about learning from a book. It's about the experience. And yeah, that's why we're also, my film company Seraphim are working with Hertfordshire, because the facilities that you've got, the education that they're going to get, and it's the practical side of that education. They ain't just going to come to us knowing what it says in the book. They're going to actually have a bit of real life experience, which is for us invaluable. So you're really lucky that you are in an area where there's a lot of work being generated, and in an area where the education side of it is, in my opinion, second to none.
Yeah. Okay. So look, very, very good place to be growing up if this is an industry that you want to go into. Right. Let me just try and hit some of the questions that have come in. So firstly, I'm just going to put up on the screen here. These are some of the questions that came in for people when they registered to attend this webinar. So you know, there's one right at the top there that's also come in a couple of times, which is how much you get paid. So
next,
well, how does it work? Because of course you're effectively self-employed, aren't you? So
yeah, so you're self-employed, so you have to be self-registered for tax or things like that. How's the pay is, some directors get multi-million pounds per project. Most directors work for free. Me personally, I, you know, certain contracts you can expect £60,000 for 3 months work. I will also, if I like a project and there's no money there, I would still do it for free if I believe in it and I know there's no money there. So it really depends. But the truth is, most directors don't get paid very well. Most projects don't have money. 86% of films lose money. That's a fact. So the pay is, it ranges. And also with the work, I've been lucky that I've directed 2 feature films in 3 months. I know a lot of directors that haven't worked for 5 years. That's why it's important to create your own opportunities. You know, if the phone ain't going to ring for you, you make the phone ring itself. You know, that's why I would say that.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no sort of menu of prices. So no one comes to you and said, look, Michael, we want you to do this. We think it's going to take 3 months, and you say, okay, well, this is going to cost this much.
There is and there ain't. So there's equity in Bectu. And as some people may know, there's been a big equity in SAG strike. So they will say, look, for this sort of film, it's all dependent on the budget. If it's under £1 million, the fee should be this and this. If it's over £1 million, the fee should be this and this. But we're self-employed, so it's not like, oh, if a bit like again with football, some footballers get paid 250 grand a week, some footballers get paid 80 quid a week. There is regulations that you can look up on Bectu and SAG and equity. In the reality, do most directors get paid that? Probably not, is the truth.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's just go around the board here. I mean, you touched on this as part of the editing process. That question there: do film composers work alongside the film directors? Also, how do the film directors gather their music from the film composers? So, what sort of relationship do you have with composers as part of the editing process?
So again, there's no set way. There's no wrong. There's no right. With Bermondsey, I work. So some of the songs I picked. So there's a place called Audio Network where there's 600,000 songs, and in Bermondsey, 9 of the songs already existed, and they work perfectly. So I picked that song, and it's there. The best example of that is "Stuck in the Middle of You" in Reservoir Dogs. It's a song where he spent his whole film budget on that one song. Then the other one, I worked with a fantastic composer called Leah Clark. She's amazing. And I said to her, look, think Godfather, think this, think that, create something. And I gave her the footage, I gave her the remit, and then she created it. So that's with Bermondsey. half of it's original, and she worked to my spec where I wrote it. I'm sorry, I gave her the idea and she created it with influence. Now, with The Spin, the music was already written. So they had a composer on board. It was the composer that inspired the story. So I had to create the footage to fit the music. And Scorsese will do that. Quite often, Scorsese will have a song in his mind and he'll go, this is what's going to be playing when I do. So he directs to the music. And I often do that. Whereas House of the Rising Sun is one of the songs that we use in Bermondsey. And it's to a fight scene. It's like a punk rock version. So I actually played the music and directed the action to the music. So that's what I would say. There's no set way. You might have a song in your mind and you pick that song, or you might go to the composer, work alongside them. And again, it's a creative process. I'll say I like that. She come back with ideas. I went, yeah, I love that, but how about a bit more of this? And then she went away and added a few more strings, for example.
Okay. Another question that's been submitted during the webinar: how do you manage large casts? So if you've got, I suppose a film could have 3 actors in it, or it could have 3,000 in it. So how do you deal with that?
It's all about individuals. If you've got a large crowd scene, that's where your third comes in. So I had a funeral scene, we had 100 extras, and my third dealt with them extras because you can't deal with 100 people. So your job is only dealing with the main actors. Now you might have a scene with 6, 9, 12 main actors, or it might just be a scene with 2. So in Bermondsey, a lot of the scenes had about 9 actors in it. And again, it's about managing that individual. It's about managing that individual in part of that group. Now, in The Spin, the majority of the film only had 2 actors in it that were in it all the way through. It's about two best friends. So you've got to really nurture that relationship and nurture their relationship because they're carrying the whole film. So, yeah, it depends on, again, how you work with that actor. Some actor, David Shaw, again, the guy from In-Betweeners, I will have hour-long conversations with him about the character, about where that character's coming from. And, you know, other actors turn up on the day. Vaz Blackwood, who, again, you would know from, his big film at the moment is Some Otherhood with Adam Deacon. And Adam Deacon, actually, they were both in, I've worked with both of them a number of times. They're actors where they turn up, they do their thing, and they go, you know. So it depends on each individual. So the number of actors is actually irrelevant. It's how you manage them actors. But if it's a large scene, your third will deal with that. That's not our job.
Yeah. Okay. No, I understand. This hopefully amalgamates a few questions that have come in, which is, when can you actually call yourself a director? I mean, could I just turn up and say, look, I'm a film director, come and hire me? Is there a formal accreditation that you get? So you've got a certificate behind you somewhere saying I'm a qualified director?
There is, I guess there's courses you can do, you know, film schools that you can go. But the truth is, in this industry, a piece of paper isn't worth anything. A bit like acting, you can go, I've got a BA honours in acting, and then someone like me turns up untrained and goes, yeah, but I've made 7 films. So you are a film director when you direct films. But, you know, I wasn't a film director until I directed Bermondsey Tales. That's why I say it's important you create your own. You know, I was quite lucky that my first film was a big budget film with a number of already high profile actors. Most, you know, you watch Scorsese's first film, it's called The Shave. It's just a guy having a shave, cutting himself. Spielberg's first film was called The Jewel, and it was a guy being chased by a trucker and he's getting paranoid about this truck following him. So you are a film director when you direct films. The level of success is up for debate. You know, you don't have to, I would say it's when you get paid. That's when you know, when you're paying the bills. But I know a lot of film directors that were working for free for years creating their own films, and they're film directors as well, and it's them films that they created that got them their first paid job. So it isn't, the education is important, but no one's going to get hired for having a piece of paper. They're going to get hired for their skill set and their experience and for what they've created.
Sure. Okay. A number of questions come in about working for yourself as opposed to working for a company. I mean, are most people as directors or producers, are you freelance? Are you employed by sort of a film company?
Most are, you're all technically freelance. And you are hired for that job. So, you know, I've done a film for Platinum Films where I was, you know, that was actually as an actor. The film I did where I was hired in was Foxake Films as a director. The Bermondsey Tales was done under Seraphim, which is actually, I co-own that company. So often you are freelance, but then what tends to happen, like Guy Ritchie has Toff Productions, Will Ferrell has Dirty Sanchez. So you often create your own production company because that's the entity behind you as an individual.
Yeah.
But you're always freelance.
Sure. Sure. Okay. And that would be the case for someone who starts as a runner. They're likely to be freelance.
All self-employed. Yeah, they always are. So no person on a film set is hired by that company. You don't get £40,000 a year to work for that company. You will get X amount of money to work on that project for that period of time. And then if you're good, like my first AD is fantastic. My DOP are fantastic. They are constantly working for different companies. Now, my company, Seraphim, will keep hiring them, but they never work for Seraphim until Seraphim gets to the point where we're making 5-6 films a year. And then we might actually put them under contract. So some, you know, you might get a contract from Netflix or Disney. Lucas, for example, got a payout from Disney where he was hired to direct that many films. Jon Favreau got a contract from Disney to hire that many, to direct that many projects and series and all that. But that is incredibly rare that you will be hired by a studio. 99% of the time it's freelance.
Yeah, okay, no, that makes sense. And then look, I'm going to wrap up with this question because I think it probably encompasses several other questions as well. So it's, would you prioritize going to university or training or getting onto a film set, e.g. as a runner? So what do you think?
You can't decide because there's no right or wrong way, and you need both. Because if without your education, you're never going to have the skill set. But without being on set, you're never going to have the experience. And more importantly, no one's ever going to spot you. You know, if you're sat behind a desk, no one's going to go, hey, you, do you want to do this? Do you want to work your way up? But then if you're on set and you're hard working and they like you, you can work your way up, but then they'll get to a point where you haven't really got the skill set. So I would say university is vital, but so is networking and getting out there and being involved. The truth is, you just got to work hard. You know, when you're on breaks for university and you've got 9 weeks off, work on set. You know, and then halfway through the course, you might get a job and work your way up, and you don't finish your training. But that's the dream scenario because we train, didn't we? We go to education to get the job. So if you get the job halfway through, then brilliant. But if not, you've got that education, you've got that founding. Every student I work with, and I've worked with loads now in my last 2 films, had the background core skills that was needed. And then we've given them the opportunity and the experience to then move on.
Yeah, okay, all right, fine. And I think like the positive spin for that is either of those options are going to put you in good stead. There's going to be things that you'll gain from either of them if you can't do both. I'm just putting on the screen now. You've spoken about University of Hertfordshire. Of course, that is our home university. But there are many other universities around the country that offer film and TV production as an undergraduate course. The QR code on the left-hand side will take you directly through to Hertfordshire's page. So do have a look at that. But again, be open-minded. I know many of you watching this at the moment will probably really want to go to university, and the appeal for it will probably be moving out of home and moving around the country somewhere. So there are other ones, but that specifically is the Hertfordshire one. Also on there, we've got the website for Screen Skills. I don't know if you're familiar with this website, Michael, Screen Skills.
I've got to be honest, I'm not.
No. Okay. So Screen Skills, it's one that we promote. It's one that will give you a host of information about a variety, pretty much every role within sort of screen TV and film production. It's a really good resource for you to have a look at. The other one, I haven't got a QR code for it, but I know that it would be remiss of me not to mention them, is Elstree Screen Arts Academy is a school that you can join. You can start there from year 10. You can also go in at year 12. So it's based in Elstree. So it's right at the hub of sort of Hertfordshire's film and TV production base, because it's literally around the corner from Sky Studios, from Elstree Studios, BBC Studios as well. And they offer a range of fantastic courses as well. So if you're not familiar with Elstree Screen Arts Academy, do Google it and go and have a look around there as well, because there's some great courses there as well. Michael, I mean, I should also say that as much as I would love everyone to go in and watch all of your films now and critique them, they have got age restrictions on them, and there may be some things that might not be suitable for everyone at the moment. But if you are 18, or you have a look at Michael's ones, they are, again, obviously do have a look at them and encourage them to. Are there any other blogs or websites or anything, any other resources that you'd encourage anyone to have a look at? Or is it even just to watch films and kind of work out what's going on behind the scenes?
It's watch film and see what works for you. Now, again, I'd like to second that about Hertfordshire University. Like I said, I know the dean. You're on the doorstep of where everything is. Why move away? Why go to Manchester when the work's happening? Not anything against Manchester, but you're there. You're look at, you've got Elstree on your doorstep.
Says the Leeds United fan.
Yeah, and the dean and the university is fantastic. Again, I've got to say, I work with Middlesex. They're also equally fantastic. The one that I would recommend, and this is the truth, I had never trained as a director. I got the director I was working with for Bermondsey fell out for illness, and the producer went, take the job on. Studio Binder on YouTube. And I did an interview out in Ireland. They went, how did you train? I went, I watched a few videos on Studio Binder. They're brilliant. They taught me everything that that's actually the extent of my education, sadly, which maybe says something about me as a director. But yeah, Studio Binder is a real good whistle stop 8-minute videos that really help. But the Elstree one sounds fantastic. Screen Studios sounds fantastic. You've got, the people watching this, they really are truly blessed to be inside, and even to have people like yourself and Hop. What a fantastic opportunities they've got on their doorstep.
Sure, thank you for the plug. Is it Studio Binder with a B or Studio Minder, as in
Binder? My accent. Yeah, Binder with a B. Studio Binder. It's on YouTube. There's ones about coverage, shot list. They go through certain directors and why they do what they do, how they do what they do, and also just watch a film and watch bad films as well. Mm-hmm. Why is that film a bad film? You'll learn more from watching a bad film than you will from a good film. It's really what I call your film palette is so important, because that will, like a chef, the food that you enjoy will influence the food that you cook. It's the same with film. It really is.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, interesting. A couple of years ago, we did one of these webinars about becoming a game designer. And one of our panelists on here said that, I mean, obviously, yeah, he really enjoyed playing games. But when he was playing them, he wasn't just playing them. He was thinking about, well, what goes into this? How has this been produced? Or how have they got the sound to do that? So I think I'm sure exactly the same applies there. And that's a decent segue on my part there, just to take you through to this page here in this QR code. So that QR code there will take you through to our virtual webinars page on Hop. So on there, you will find every other webinar that we've ever produced on here. Some of them will be really related. We did one on set and prop design not too long ago as well, which of course it forms a very integral part of that filmmaking process. We've covered careers in TV and film production previously as well. Guarantee there's something in there for everyone. We've done over 100 of them. So whether it's web design, whether it's becoming a personal trainer, whatever you can think of, I'd like to think that we've covered it on there. So do have a look at those. So just in closing, firstly, to all of you that have joined this webinar live, thank you so much for coming in, for contributing your questions. I'm sorry I've not been able to ask everyone verbatim, but hopefully we've covered all the sorts of things that you were asking fairly generally there, and that will help you. But most particularly, thank you so much to Michael for giving up your time this Thursday afternoon and sharing all your incredible experience and insights. I know I found it incredibly inspiring, and I'm sure everyone watching this will have done as well, and it's really going to help them make those really next positive steps in their careers.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me down. Two things: it is a hard industry. But you've got to, you know, it's always important to share your experiences with people, and we really pride ourselves on that. And also, you know, it's just important for people to just believe in themselves and stick with it. So, yeah, I hope if it helps anyone, I hope it, you know, I hope it inspires them. And there are, you know, if there's ways of reaching out to you, if anyone has any questions and they can ask you, I'm always happy to help in any way possible. Because if people don't share their experiences, no one's ever going to get anywhere.
For sure. Okay, so look, if that would help, contact your careers leader at school who told you about this webinar, and we'll do our very best to get that question to Michael and get a response to you. So Michael, again, in closing, thanks ever so much. Really appreciate your time. Incredibly helpful. And so for all of you watching at the moment, hopefully there are lots of budding film directors and people who are going to make a great contribution, perhaps directly to you, Michael, in the years to come.
Oh no, it'd be brilliant. Hopefully, yes, see some of you on set at some point.
Absolutely. So thanks ever so much. Have a very pleasant evening, and we wish you all the very best with your future career decisions.